All right, good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? My name is Dustin Lunow. I am the EMS training chief for Joplin Fire, and I'm going to have this morning's run presentation until, what are we going till 10 o'clock-ish? Somewhere in that time frame. So I'm joined this morning with Mr. Scotty Powell, Mr. Jeff Prosser. So we have the full staff sitting here. We are just waiting on go. We're excited to hear all of your questions and comments, except from Nate Bean. We don't want to hear from him. I'm just kidding.
Him yet?
No, I think we need to do that. I'm just kidding. So we have a little topic here that I've absolutely, completely, and totally stolen from Chief Mark Cannon, who is currently on active duty for the Oklahoma Air National Guard. So he's not here to stop me, so I'm going to take full credit for this. Unless it's bad, and then absolutely this was Chief Cannon's idea. So I want to talk about some EMS operation issues, and mainly emergency vehicle risk management. So this is by far the most dangerous thing that we do. I found it interesting. I was out, I want to say I was at a natural gas plant, and they had all kinds of high pressure this, high pressure that, stuff that, I don't ever want to mess with. And the sign on the exit of the plant, it was on the inside of the gate, so the general public couldn't see it, was the sign said that you are now entering the most dangerous part of your job, the public roadway. And it kind of put it in perspective, because that's exactly what we do. The most dangerous thing we do is get in our trucks and drive, be it fire, be it EMS, be it staff cars, be it police, whatever it is. The most dangerous thing we do is operate on the roadway with the general public. For a myriad of reasons, but mainly because the general public are preoccupied with the general public. They're pretty preoccupied with themselves. There's a lot of things that go along with that. Cars are by far much quieter. Stereos are much louder. There's a lot of things going on, from smartphone devices to whatever else. I mean, I've driven, we were talking about this the other day, I've driven past people literally had a book on the steering wheel, were reading on the highway. Mr. Powell was talking about he was in Houston and somebody actually had a laptop on the dash and they were sending emails as they were driving. And these are the people that we expect to make reasonable, sound decisions as we come up behind them. That's not going to happen. So, as we get started this morning, we're going to talk about emergency vehicle risk management. And Paul Combs is, if you guys aren't familiar with Paul Combs, he is a pretty great illustrator, and he does a lot of fire service, a lot of EMS stuff. So he's got some really great stuff. He has a great sense of humor too. So as you can see, as they're cooking through this intersection, he said, "Did we hit something at the last intersection?" And the driver's like, "Yeah, what intersection?" Don't be that guy. So here we go. So our objectives: we want to kind of take a peek. We want to take a snapshot of some of the national-wide epidemics of apparatus accidents. And the methods by which national organizations have addressed this issue. And the reason behind that is if something were to happen, you're not going to be judged on what you thought was a good idea. The incident's going to be judged on what national organizations have set forth criteria as what is best practices. So we're talking NFPA, and you're like, okay, NFPA is fire, except for 1917. So go read 1917, and that is ambulance construction operations. So, what is it, 1501, I believe. It's 1500, excuse me, for fire apparatus. But those national best practices are going to be what you are judged on by a jury of your peers if there is an incident. And we hope that never happens, but that's what we do need to take a peek at it. So, we want to discuss apparatus occupant safety. And crew resource management. It's everybody's job on the apparatus to ensure our safety. What I find interesting is one of the great differences between fire and EMS. Fire, you have to be there so many years. You have to take so many certifications. You have to take in Joplin, you have to actually literally take a full driver's academy that is going on at this point. Almost it's like a 2-month academy, where there's numbers of hours, there's certain criteria, there's a full check sheet, books, everything that you have to do to even become qualified to test. In EMS, it's the guy directly out of 6 months of school as an EMT. I'm not saying one's right or wrong, I'm just saying let's put things in context. sometimes our drivers on an ambulance may or may not be the least qualified. Definitely at times can be the least senior person on that truck. So by no means all the time, but it's something that we have to look at. That's what we have to use crew resource management. Everybody on the apparatus is in charge of the apparatus safety. So if you feel unsafe in a passenger seat, you need to be vocal about, hey, listen, you need to do X, Y, or Z. And typically it's you need to slow down. All right, so here's some statistics on fire apparatus. I tried to do this kind of quickly. We had a late minute class that was speaker that was canceled this morning. So I pushed some of this together quickly. Some of it's fire apparatus related, but I have some really great videos and some talking points for EMS also. So this is a study by the University of Michigan in 1988. It conducted the study to look at trends for fire apparatus collisions. 2,472 fire apparatus involved in collisions annually. 6 fire apparatus occupants are killed annually. 413 are injured. 21 civilians are killed, and 642 civilians are injured annually by fire apparatus response. Those firemen don't know how to drive. I tell you what, I'm kidding. As of 2012, the numbers had fluctuated, but man, that's a lot of damage, and it's very expensive. I'm not sure what, if we ballpark, what would it take to put a new ambulance online right now, Scotty? If you were going to take a number, $150,000. So there you go. You wreck an ambulance. Honestly, actually, even if you just slightly wreck it, it still has to be recertified by the Department of Transportation. You're looking at $150,000. You get into fire apparatus, a good engine's going to run you somewhere about 350 to 4-ish. Maybe north of that, they go up all the time. I know Ladder 1's sitting right at 1.2 million. So not trucks that we want to damage by any means. You wreck a police car, you're out 20 grand. I mean, that's why it's like bumper cars out there. So, I'm kidding. So, let's assess. What are we doing to ensure apparatus occupant safety? Apparatus, I'm talking about any emergency vehicle apparatus. Absolutely crew resource management. If you've ever been, I know you guys have been, in the back of an ambulance and somebody nailed the brakes, and now they have the nets. They didn't used to have the net. Used to, you could travel literally from the rear door to the front compartment and hit your face on it when somebody hit the brakes. Those were fun times. So, you know what that's like. Just imagine if it was even a more severe sudden stop, what was going to happen to the occupants in the back working on, conducting patient care. It's not going to go well. I got to a point where I tried to, once I got everything done, I tried to move into the jump seat. At least I was rearward facing. I felt somewhat safer at that point in time. So what specific guidelines to help prevent apparatus accident and enhance responder safety? Every entity is different. Every entity has their basic response criteria that are specific for them. The state holds specific criteria that we have to meet. There's minimums. And of course, the national level has minimums also. Everything we do as separate entities meets or exceeds the requirements set forth by state. So again, everybody's different on that, but we do have to follow our guidelines. What specific points in our guidelines help enhance safety in roadway incidents? And what kind of risk management measures do we take as a crew to ensure safety and minimize the risk of apparatus damage? Apparatus damage is actually on the list of things really, really far down on my list personally. And if you start talking to, most, as people look at it as administration, if you will, I can replace a truck, even a $1.2 million truck. I don't want to. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to replace that truck. However, we cannot replace a life. The life is so much more important. We have to take, apparatus damage is significant, causes significant budgetary concerns. Not anything compared to actually the damage to life and limb. So that's our main concern. All right. Can we do better? Well, absolutely. Anything we do, we can actually work to do better. So a couple of things we need to start out. Crew resource management and apparatus safety and response safety, whatever you want to try to call it, starts with care and maintenance of the apparatus. If your ambulance is not in good shape, it will not perform properly on the roadway. So here is actually a quick snapshot of the daily check procedures for Joplin Fire. And we discuss, how does each check actually reduce risk to the responder? With our trucks, we do actually run them for about 15 minutes every morning to let everything warm up. That's important on a modern, turbo diesel that's got diesel exhaust fluid and everything else, all the emissions. You don't want to run them hard and then shut them off quick. So not as important when you're talking gas motors, but still you don't want to run anything at wide open throttle when it's cold. So your radios, if your headsets are not working, some crews do use headsets, some don't. If you can't talk to each other very easily, if you can't hear what's going on, you're not going to be very good at it. So make sure your radio is working. Your tires. I have come in more than one time. I bet you I could count maybe half a dozen times. I've come in the morning, walked up to the back of the truck, and I just looked at it and I thought, got a tight inside dual flat. And you're like, well, how did he know that? Oh, it's because the truck was leaning to the left. It doesn't like to sit on one tire. If you're checking tires, you need to be able to thump both the inside and the outside dual. Inside duals are notorious for going flat, and you never knowing it. The truck just operates a little bit differently as you're just driving it around. It just kind of feels weird. But as you start responding, you start pushing the limits of that truck, it will absolutely get away from you. So make sure that you kick your tires, literally. We use a rubber mallet, something like that every day to thump the tires to make sure that inside dual is in good shape. Obviously you want to make sure your ambulance water tank level is at a sufficient level. Sarcasm, there. So the fuel level, you can't go anywhere if you don't have fuel. Don't be that guy. I know we're busy. I know we have things going on, but you have to make sure that when that you keep that apparatus in a ready to respond position at all times. I have literally come in, jumped on the ambulance at that 7 o'clock morning call, taken the call, got on scene, and had to shut the truck down because I was concerned about it dying sitting on scene because the last crew just didn't really care that much, I guess. So do not do that. That is not setting yourself up for success. Inventory the apparatus. If you don't have everything you need, you're not going to be very good at your job. If you roll up on scene and you forgot your cardiac monitor, or as the crew before me, they left it on the rear bumper and left the hospital, it didn't fare well, just so you know. The traffic took care of that. That's not a good thing. You take off out of the station and you were checking your truck, and oops, I left the cot sitting in the bay. It happens. Just be sure. We have to go through our checks every day. Inventory your bags. Your bag should be self-sufficient. You should be able to run a call on scene completely out of your bag with everything you need until you have proper time to get back settled and back into the ambulance. Same thing, especially you're talking about, on the fire side. There's no going back to the ambulance. You're all by yourself. If you didn't bring what you needed, you're not going to be able to conduct your patient care appropriately. Make sure all your equipment is there. Make sure your batteries are charged. We have a rotation program at our agency where they're required, they daily rotate the batteries. They rotate it from charge to standby into the unit, and so every day, every morning, it's rotated. I understand that a lot of what everybody else does, you're actually just running the batteries dead just from sheer call volume. Be sure you got those things on the charger. Be sure you're rotating those out. Be sure you got that good spare one in that back pocket as you're, I've literally, defibrillated. What's your record, Scotty, on number of defibrillations for one patient?
Me personally?
Yeah, you're personally.
It was actually in the fire department, but we were using AED 7 times.
7 times. Did you kill the battery out of curiosity?
No, but we burnt the pads. They were charred.
Oh, gosh. Burnt the pads. Yeah, my record is actually 7 also. And it was out of Life Pack 12, and we were actually rotating the batteries out of the machine because it started coming up and beeping at you low battery. So, yeah, that stuff can happen. So, emergency lighting operation. If your emergency warning is not working and you're in an accident, I'm telling you right now, the first thing that they're going to look at is make sure all your lights are working. And they're going to come up and say, that one light that you can barely see that's not working, that's why you caused the accident. It's your fault. And they're going to go after the agency, and anymore, they absolutely, when it's egregious enough, will go after the individual. Implied immunity is not exactly what it used to be. So, non-emergency light operation, all your DOT lights, all your clearance lights, your side marker lights, everything has to be operational. If it's not, it needs to be labeled. If it is, it needs to be turned in for maintenance request. If it is something that can operate just like a clearance light, yes, maybe we can operate with that under your specific guidelines, but make sure it's notated. That is your get out of jail free card. Use that card. And wash the exterior surfaces of the apparatus. Dirty fire trucks cannot put out fire. I don't know if you knew that. Obviously, something that we take pride and ownership in. But I always made sure we did a thing in Broken Arrow when I worked down there. At the end of the day, they would wash the trucks, and I got there and I thought, this is stupid. I'm washing the truck so tomorrow the truck will look nice. However, I'm driving a dirty truck all day. So at 7 o'clock, after I got done with my checks, I backed the truck up and I washed it because I wanted to drive in a clean truck all day. It's pride and ownership. That and washing your truck is actually a great way to check it. You see where, maybe something's been dented, something's been chipped. It's paying attention to it, knowing your apparatus backward, forward, inward, and outward, because that is true your get out of jail free card right there. All right, as we move forward. Care and maintenance, weekly checks. These are more involved. You need to be checking oil levels, checking the belts, coolant level, brake fluid level, battery fluid levels. I'm not sure if that's something you typically want to do on an ambulance, but you have your bank of batteries. You need to be looking at them. What are we looking for? Well, I've seen split batteries. I've seen cables that are coming off. I've seen posts that have eroded and the cable's just laying there. So just when you see that and you're constantly looking at it, you'll catch these things before they become issues. So just, get more involved in your apparatus weekly or whatever your agency's guidelines are. The tires are always supposed to remain in a downward position, just so you know. Never operate an apparatus that has been found to have any type of serious maintenance issue. It is extremely important to get involved and be looking at certain things. The ambulances are air ride. So they work off of a trailing arm with an airbag. If every day you go in there and your airbag's down, it's maybe you need to identify that for maybe a mechanic needs to look at it, because if you ever lose an airbag going down the road, that is a bad day. Your ambulance is going to be all over the road. It's going to be swaying back and forth, and I've seen it happen. Operate your brakes, looking at your steering, going further than what you would normally do, driving it, looking for something, anomaly. Man, the steering wheel doesn't feel right. Man, it seems to be pulling to the left. You need to notate that and pass those concerns on. We're trying to protect ourselves. We're trying to protect the general public. So if it has an issue, be sure you turn that issue in. Write that stuff up. Occupant safety. I know it says fire apparatus. But statistically, this is a great one. That's why I left this slide in. So, all right. So in statistics involving line of duty deaths involving fire apparatus accidents, one disturbing trend is that greater than 80% of firefighters killed in the apparatus were not wearing their seatbelt. That is pretty thick-headed. We do not move an apparatus until everybody is buckled into that apparatus. The apparatus have warning systems in there, and they beep and scream and lights flash. If you take the thing out of park, release the air brakes, and somebody doesn't have a seatbelt on. They have weight sensors on them. They have seatbelt sensors on them. Our maintenance guy keeps all those going. It's a chore because things break, but we make sure that these systems are in place. Why? Well, in 2014, an agency down at Tulsa decided it was a great idea that instead of operating the apparatus buckled, and they want to operate, we need to be more freely to put our equipment on. We need to not do that. But, the chime is really annoying. So they figured out a way to bypass the safety system by unplugging it and using a paper clip to plug the two prongs in to make the bell go off, which worked great, right up until somebody rolled the fire engine on a clover leaf in the midtown Tulsa. One of the guys was injured. The investigation began. They find out the seatbelt safety sensors had been bypassed. They started looking department-wide and found several apparatus that had done that. Drivers got demoted. Captains got demoted that knew about it. This is a life safety issue. Do not mess around with life safety equipment and try to bypass it. You need to be buckled. You need to be restrained when responding to an incident. I guarantee half of you guys are already thinking, well, I'm in the back, I can't buckle. I get it. I understand. That's why there are some safety features built into the ambulances now, like the netting on the side jump seat. But I would stress that long distance transports where you're not actively providing patient care, maybe you have your monitor set up to automatically run blood pressure every 5 to 10 minutes, and you're really just there. Get in the jump seat, get buckled up. be sure you protect yourselves. Be sure the patient's buckled up. Be sure the patient's restrained properly. Don't get complacent to where you just halfway buckle them and the buckles are laying there. Yes, they're buckled, but that person's coming out of it if you ever got in a wreck. Don't do that. All right, so again, we won't move our apparatus until everybody's buckled, and you will catch an earful if you try to do that. All right, so easy, a caveman can buckle it. That's right. A lot of things come slow to us, and I get it, I understand. There's an adage in the fire service, it's 100 years of tradition unimpeded by progress. And while that is a little bit overkill, the theory is there. Come on, it's time to do some things to protect ourselves. Our goal is not just to make it to retirement, our goal is to make it through retirement and have a great life after we're done with our stint in emergency services. So, let's get it buckled. All right, so 42% of all firefighters polled felt that the size and weight of the fire apparatus was enough to protect them from serious injury or the event of a crash. Not smart. 58% thought the seatbelt was uncomfortable. I don't know how comfortable it would be to, be flown out of an incident because you're, had serious injuries, but still. Others said that they were unable to reach their seatbelt wearing their gear, or maybe it's all your PPE or all the other stuff that you have going on. All that is secondary to our crew's safety, be it in the front of an ambulance or the back of a fire truck. You have to remain seatbelted as you're responding or driving around the city. All right, some case studies. Enough of that. Let's talk about some case studies, because this is where it's going to go to. As if an incident were to happen, we're going to pull. Well, when I say we're, lawyers are going to look at regional case studies, and they use these case studies, one, to start setting other guidelines forward, but two, they're going to be what's used as reasonable and prudent in a case or any type of legal case that's brought forward against an entity or yourself. So here's a case study for you. Here's what's left of a fire engine out of Texas City. So this was engine 33. It was traveling north on the roadway. It approached a controlled intersection, which means it had stoplights. Passenger vehicle east had the green light, entered the intersection. Engine 33 collided with the eastbound passenger vehicle. It deflected off of it, and it hit a bridge pillar. And you can totally see the pillar there in front of the engine. You can see where it's hit. So here's an overview of it. The engine entered the intersection, obviously at some rate of speed, because after it hit the car, it deflected and bounced over to the bridge pillar. This is not good. What issues in this case study are addressed in the operations of emergency vehicle guidelines? The state of Missouri, it's very, very clear. You do not enter a controlled intersection at speed, this period. If you have the green light, you can enter the intersection at the speed limit. You cannot exceed the speed limit, no matter what your agency guidelines are, and I guarantee your guidelines meet this. You have to proceed through an intersection at the given speed of the roadway, even run an emergency. If the intersection is red or yellow, or it's a stop sign, you have to come to a full stop before proceeding with caution through the intersection. I don't want to start the discussion, yeah, we do this, yeah, we roll that, yeah, we do this. That's all great right up until that happens right there. What becomes a roll becomes a speed, becomes a this, becomes a that, and ends up with this. This is not a great outcome. What happens when something like this happens? Now the incident that this engine was responding to has to be covered by a secondary engine, not to mention that the incident this engine has caused gets a third engine. So you've drastically depleted the resources of the city just because you didn't decide to follow guidelines and stop at a controlled intersection. All right. NFPA 1500 covers that. 1917 also covers that for ambulance operations. So at no time the speed of an apparatus shall exceed this posted speed limit. That is a Joplin SOG running emergency. So here's another case study. This is the wrong side of a fire truck. This apparatus was coming around a cloverleaf. It was involved, basically, they were going too fast around the cloverleaf. One of the four members were actually wearing a seatbelt. The speedometer was inoperable. It was not written up. This resulted in a line of duty death that's approximately 15 years later from injuries that were sustained when the captain was ejected out of the windshield. So, all that to say this, they were too fast for conditions. Too fast for conditions. Every apparatus, ambulance, whatever. I know you guys know this. And this is something I actually have all of our new hires do. We go down to Metz and we borrow one of the ambulances, and we beat the living hell out of it. I'm just kidding. We don't do that, Scotty. He's giving me the look. No, we actually drive around. We drive around our cone course, and we just drive around at roadway speeds. And I have everybody drive it with everybody else standing in the back of the ambulance. They need to understand what happens when a small input in the steering wheel becomes a great input or a great result in the top of that box moving. When you're standing on the frame on that ambulance, you are taller than the driver's seat, and it really starts swaying back and forth. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but the goal is to give an appropriate, appropriate response back to the hospital. We do not need to beat the heck out of the patients. We do not need to beat the heck out of the apparatus or our personnel responding from an incident back to a hospital. If one of our personnel are driving, or whoever might be driving, ambulances are tall. They sway. They catch wind. As you're going around a corner, the ambulance leans off. If you go around it too fast, it will absolutely tip over. It doesn't take much of a hit. I think it was, 2 years ago on Main Street where the truck was clipped by another car and the ambulance ended up on its side, and it was just barely tapped. You put any type of external input on a vehicle that's already in motion, and things start moving very quickly. And in this case right here, this apparatus overturned, ejected the captain. This was a false alarm. Was this really worth it? It wasn't worth it if it was a real alarm. We need to be smarter than this. So, something to consider. The speed limit signs for exit ramps and curves are regulated for passenger vehicles on dry pavement. So, it is the best conditions possible. So, if you're rounding that and you're considering going faster than that, you need to reconsider. I don't want to get in the discussion. You need to operate the vehicle safely at all times. All right. I think I hit the thing twice. All right, so firefighter responsibilities. As a firefighter, obviously, but this goes for responders. I forgot to put responders in here, so I apologize. We need to take responsibility for our own safety, and we need to wear our seatbelt. We need to know our role when we're assigned as a driver or if we're the paramedic in the front seat. It takes both those people to be looking. No one person can look in all directions at one time. You're approaching an intersection, you need to be talking. There needs to be a dialogue. Okay, I'm clear left, I have a car coming. Okay, you look good this direction. Whatever that case may be, that's using crew resource management. So be on the lookout for unsafe conditions and be verbal as we're starting to do this. So yeah, please. All right, so I have some videos for you here. This is, we're going to open this real quick. It's going to take just a second as it opens, and then I'm going to make it full size. I'm going to apologize for the ads. I have no control of the ads. All right, we skip the ads. Can they hear that? I hope everybody can hear that well.
We're still at a delay.
I'm going to apologize for the ads. I have no control of the ads. All right, we skip the ads.
I can't hear it.
Oh, great. Okay, so I was just told that you can't hear it. So I'm going to get with Mr. Prosser. We're going to figure out. I'm going to narrate for you. That's bad. That's worse. In this case, the driver of this ambulance, this wreck resulted in 2 fatalities. The driver was operating the vehicle at a rate of 90 miles an hour before, it was actually 5 seconds before.
Airbag module from the ambulance recorded the speed before the crash.
Okay.
5 seconds
We'll have to
before
pick
the
up from
impact, Benson was
Okay.
driving
We're hoping
85
that
miles
that
per
will help a
hour.
little bit.
In the final second, he had slowed to 58 miles an hour.
Perhaps he was unsure if the semi was stopped or moving, but in any event, he didn't slow down soon enough to avoid this accident.
In a phone interview, Genson's attorney, Scott Reinhardt of Sioux City, said the jail sentence and fine will have a chilling effect and could change the way paramedics respond in an emergency. But emergency responders we talked to say they are not above the law.
was tragic, and I think everybody stopped to reflect on, you know, when they drive.
Okay, so yeah, that is tragic, and
And
I'm gonna go ahead and close that window here for just
just
a
think
second.
about how fast they're going.
So that is tragic,
That worked, Dustin.
but that was completely preventable. Why are we traveling? It was actually 85 miles an hour, so I set corrected because I'm currently not standing. Why are we traveling at 85 miles an hour and trying to overtake a semi? At some point in time, it said within the last 5 seconds, it recorded the 85 miles an hour, and on impact, it recorded 55 miles an hour. And that is, oops, wrong button. That is completely preventable, and I'm going to actually not play. I'm going to turn the sound off for just a second.
Are you over 25? Have a quick.
I am over 25, yes, but just barely. Let's just look at that for just a second. That is a massive amount of intrusion. I mean, if we roll up on an accident with that kind of intrusion, we're not expecting great outcomes. We've got to be smarter than that. We've got to maintain control of the apparatus at all times. At all times. There's no excuse. It's very tragic. People lost their life because of a decision that was made. And typically, the decision didn't outweigh the condition in the first place. There's things that we can't control in life. And I'm going to start this discussion. And I'd really like you guys to discuss this at a later date. I can't control how long it takes me to drive from point A to point B. Traffic is what it is. The response is what it is. When you're talking about pushing a little harder, you're talking about seconds. And all the adages of, oh, seconds count, yeah, they don't. We're talking such a minimal amount of time. The response time is what it is. The transport time from the scene to the hospital, it is what it is. The only time that I can change, actually there's two. One, I can get out of the station faster. I can actually get up and be paying attention and get to the truck faster. That's just being, as far as emergency services goes, that's being a good employee. What I really can control is my time on scene. My time on scene is where I'm going to change the outcome for this patient. If I'm dragging, if I'm slowing on time on scene, that's just going to take longer to get the patient to the hospital. I can't make it up in the response. The response is what it is. We need to be looking at our responses as preset times, just like if you were to Google point A from the point B. It's going to give you a set time. I think now it actually does figure out traffic, but typically it didn't. It didn't figure out traffic, wind direction, nothing. It was a set time. And we need to look at our response times just as that. It is a set time. We can't control it. What we can't control is what happens on scene. We can control how long it takes us to get to the truck. We can control how long it takes us to get the patient to the truck and start the wheels rolling again. But that's all we can control. The response is not where we control and minimize times. It's just what it is. Okay, so here's one as we're discussing and moving forward. This is one, and I bring this up. I'm going to back that up for just a second and pause it. Maybe I'm not going to pause it. There's always that possibility. All right, I'm going to have to reload that because I went to the next video for some reason. And I bring this up because in town, out of town, no matter where you're at, you have responded with another agency, be it a law enforcement agency, a fire agency, another EMS agency, your same agency with two different trucks coming from different directions. And this is one of the most dangerous things that we do. When you're responding, you need to be vocal about where you're at and what you're doing. You need to be very vocal as far as you're coming up to intersections. As you're approaching an intersection, especially if you see another emergency vehicle, you need to be on the radio. It needs to be completely clear who's taking that intersection first before you go through it. And that should default to the means of direction, or as far as who's got the green line, who's got the red. Our apparatus will actually, if we're responding and we know, hey, we're going to cross each other headed to X address, we'll start calling off, okay, I'm coming through this intersection now. And just to let the other trucks know where we're at and what we're doing. Because actually, if you start Googling Tulsa Fire loves to wreck trucks into other trucks. And somehow they come out looking great at it. We were always talking about this at Broken Arrow Fire because, well, we made fun of Tulsa. Nothing against Tulsa. They're a great department. But they did this more than once. They would clip another truck coming through an intersection, and it is completely and totally preventable, and it is completely and totally unjustified. So here is that video.
The top at 6, 5 months after the serious crash involving a fire truck and ambulance, one of the firefighters behind the wheel is being punished. The firefighter who was driving the ambulance has been reprimanded.
And Local 10 News reporter Michael Simon is live now with the story you saw first on Local 10.
Well, good evening, Lori and Calvin. We did break this story on Local10.com. You know, earlier today, I got a chance to go up to the 10th floor, sat down one-on-one with the assistant fire chief, and he told me that this is one of the harshest punishments his department has.
Just so you know, this isn't the city of Miami. It's Miami.
Facing a harsh punishment, being blamed for causing this violent collision between a Miami fire rescue engine and an ambulance. The chief of Miami Fire Rescue describing the firefighters' actions as, quote, grossly negligent and unsafe. He went on to say the actions endangered the lives of citizens and firefighters.
He's been suspended for 96 hours, which is an incredible, one of the biggest suspensions that you can have.
Okay, and I'm going to go on record saying a suspension's a joke for that one. That's not going to happen around here. Look at that as you're looking at the carnage come out of here. A suspension for that much damage, I'm going to disagree with that personally.
2015, the first responder was behind the wheel of this ambulance transporting a grandmother and 2 children to Jackson Memorial Hospital. That's when investigators say he blew a red light, colliding with a fire engine, responding to a separate call.
Our policy in the past was you had to slow down and yield to oncoming traffic when you were approaching either a stop sign or a red light. We failed to do that.
Cell phone video shows you the chaos. Firefighters trying to rescue the victims, all of it unfolding at the intersection of Northwest 12th Avenue and 14th Street near Jackson Memorial Hospital. The crash injured a dozen, including 7 firefighters and 2 people who were riding in this car.
I was shocked that there weren't more serious injuries and or somebody didn't lose their life.
You're my favorite granddaughter.
Yes, you are. So let's just do the math real quick. We just took an ambulance out of service, and actually that is it was a Freightliner International, I'm not sure, but that was not your $150,000 breed. That was a $250,000 plus truck. The engine itself, let's just give us a nice $400,000. So now we're up to $650. Let's talk about there's one car involved, so obviously the Pontiac G6 is worth a good $70,000, $80,000. I'm not sure. I'm just kidding. 7. So we're looking at, they're $660. Now we're starting to talk about personal damages. Obviously there's going to be some type of a settlement that comes forth for one, the members of the family that were in the back of the ambulance, the members of the public that were injured in the accident, the time off for the employees, the medical bills for all the injuries. And then when you're starting to talk about, you've rolled over easily over 7 figures at this point. And again, I'm going to go back to my personal is a suspension probably doesn't cover the fallout of what that should have been. That is completely preventable, 110% completely preventable. We have got to stop at every red light to ensure our safety. It could be from a dual response like that, or it could be from a singular response. So here's a great one. I just like this video because I guess these are guys that you don't want to mess with. I don't know.
Good evening, everyone. Breaking news tonight. A fire truck T-boned by a semi on 71 Highway. We have a news crew live on the scene.
The accident in the southbound lanes of 71.
Okay, so that was absolutely the wrong video. So somewhere in here, I'm going to find the other wrong video and we'll play it. But so let's talk about, here's a great one. I like this video, and I know it is a fire apparatus response, but I'd like to talk about a couple of things as we watch this video. So this is a little bit of a long response. I'm going to turn it down because I think it's a little bit loud here. Hope everybody can hear that pretty well. And I'm going to fast forward a couple things real quick. This is a dash cam off the captain's side of an apparatus, but emergency response is emergency response as we start talking forward. And there's several guys that have probably already seen this one. They're running through here, and I'm looking at, first thing I'm looking at, let's talk about roadway conditions. What are the roadway conditions? well, I see snow obviously laying on the ground around the roadway. The roadway looks clear, but it's wet. I see extremely long shadows, so I'm thinking this is really, really close to dusk. What happens at dusk? The temperature drops significantly, typically. So I need to be thinking, is the roadway still safe to operate on in normal conditions? Is it a wet roadway? Is it starting to transition to somewhat of a ice-covered roadway in different sections? And did it go to a different video?
So according to studies, there's one food that
Or it
raises
paused.
testosterone levels by 52.
And I'm sorry that it did go to a different video, so I apologize. I'm going to get back out of this and relaunch this. Oh, come on. Okay, I apologize. The touch screen's a little sensitive. All right, so this guy's running through. Things to think about as we're responding. It looks like they're doing pretty good here to me. I don't see anything. I'd love for you guys to make a comment. What do you guys see as you're making these? I like to watch these. We like to use videos like these for training because there's always something that'll pop up and you're like, ooh, I didn't see this before. Maybe I should look at this at my response. We can learn a lot. There's a red light. Oh, hey, look at that, career resource management. You're clear my way. We've came to a complete stop. Now let's move through this. I would say that was done very well. You can see there's actually some cinders on the side of the road. There's some standing water. So maybe we're not concerned about ice. I don't know. Now's a good time. Oh, hey, look what we got here. What do we have here as we're running through? I see a school bus. I see a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit sign. School has just got out, if you ask me. School has just got out, and this comes up a whole different conversations. You do not get to speed through a school zone at any point in time, ever, ever, ever. It's 25 miles an hour, and honestly, it better be slower than that if it's this pack. This pack actually kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies, thinking a kid could dart out in front of one of these buses or a car. I would hate to ever see or be in a position to where you had no out when you were involved in an auto-ped. So always leave yourself the way out. Typically the way out is to reduce speed because you can just stop the apparatus. So we got a car that he absolutely has to go right now so he can get over and pull over in front of you. We've all seen that guy. Again, response looks pretty good, I think. I'm leery of hitting the touch screen. I'm afraid I'm going to stop the video again. Yeah, he rolled that red. There's no getting around it. There was no career resource management. They didn't talk about it. He went right through it at 10 to 15 miles an hour. I see snow on the side of the road here. I also see a roadway. Well, let's see what he does here. I'm curious. Which way does he go? Hey, he hangs right. There's some snow on the roadway right there. What happens late in the day as the shadows start to fall, and especially you start talking around in Newton County, as you talk about a little more hills, the back side of a hill that hits the shadow, the north side of a hill. You come around a corner like this one, I got sunlight. Hey, look, I'm now completely shaded. You will transition from wet to snowpack, and you don't have anything. You don't have any time to react because you weren't planning for it. So right now we're running in complete shadows. Has the roadway transitioned? I don't know. There's tracks over to the side. Be very cautious with this roadway. It appears that it could transition to a non-mitigable surface very, very quickly. All right, so here's a good example. He's come around the corner and he's caught complete shade all of a sudden. Things freeze when the sun's not on him. So he continues to roll through here. We're getting close, good. So he continues to roll through here. He's in a residential area. I don't hear a siren now. I don't know if anybody else. I hear his Q2 winding, but it's kind of pathetic at this point. Here's a case in point. The human ear does not hear loud noises as it approaches. What it does hear is changes in pitch and tone. That's why your siren has a high-low, not just a high-low, not the weird European siren. I'm just talking about it has a variable pitch. If you're going into intersection and you're burying your foot or you're hitting the button for the air horn and you leave the air horn on, you are doing absolutely no good and you are part of the problem. I'm going to say that again. You are doing no good laying on an air horn. What does get people's attention is bouncing that air horn, switching the siren off to high, low, back, forth, wail, yelp, phaser, whatever you want to call it. The continued change back and forth is what the ear picks up, not you burying the air horn. I don't hear a siren. I hear the Q2 going again. The Q2 is a great tool. It's very loud, but you've got to be bouncing that with the air horns. You've got to be bouncing that with the siren. He's got her wound up now. He's got her going now. Oh crap. I apologize for any language that may be coming on here, so I'm just going to go ahead and say that. Let's look at that. What happens here? I'd like everybody's 2 cents. I can't pause anything for anything. I tell you what.
Have you used this yet?
So, hey, I didn't try that keyboard. That apparatus was responding with the sun setting behind him. I don't know that driver ever saw him. Did you see that as it finally came through? The apparatus had the sun at its back, so the lady was looking up the hill. All she could see is probably the sun. And by the time she realized what was going on, it was too late. And I don't know how this one turned out. Extended bumper on a fire truck versus the door of a Grand Am is not going to turn out very well. All right. I'm going to keep going. I want to talk about accident blocking, roadway blocking, whatever you want to talk about here. This is something that this cost 2 Midwest City firefighters their life back in, I think it was 1988, I believe. This is something that's kind of near and dear to my heart. The most dangerous thing we do is get on the public roadway. I've said that before, but especially on the highways. If we're on a highway, we have got to be extremely cognizant of what's going on. Our new response criteria is a minimum of 2 engines on every interstate call, just for the sheer capability to block and provide early warning. So this is a great example of apparatus blocking. So this is actually a car fire. The engine has positioned itself in a way to deflect traffic away from the incident, and we always operate on the safety side of that apparatus. The goal of that apparatus, if you can see the corner, let me see if I don't. Oh well. The goal on that apparatus is to put the corner of that apparatus all the way onto the center barrier, or all the way onto the shoulder, so nobody can drive between the apparatus and the barrier and get into our crash scene. So we have a safe area to work and to provide care. This is where I really get into it, and this is something you guys need to think about. And if it's something we got to work together better as agencies, and it's something that, as Joplin Fire, we take very serious, but other agencies that you may work with may or may not, and that is providing protection for the entire area. That ambulance, obviously you provide patient care off the back bumper of an ambulance. That's where you work off of, that's where you load off of. The back of the ambulance has got to be protected. If the ambulance is the first thing, if it's sitting up there with the police car, if it's sitting to the traffic side of the fire engine, you're in the wrong spot. We got to do better together as agencies, making sure the ambulance is properly positioned and protected. And I'm going to show you why really, really quickly, because I have a couple of great pictures of it. You've got to work off the protected side. You've got to work off the protected side of the fire apparatus, not the police car, the fire apparatus. And why, you may say? I'm glad you asked.
At the General, we welcome you back, even after a lapse in coverage.
Eight troopers were hurt today, along with several other people in this crash involving a fire truck and an ambulance.
Here's a great example of the ambulance in the wrong spot.
Before 10:30 in the morning, as the emergency workers were helping with another accident, police say the dump truck crashed into the scene on this is Interstate 280 just south of Mount Pleasant.
I think most people have seen this, but it is decently recent, within the last 18 months-ish, maybe.
It's quite a wild scene, Maurice. State police have been processing this accident scene for more than 6 hours now, trying to figure out.
Hey, I figured out how to pause it.
Of that dump truck crashed, causing a damaging chain of events. And you can see the vehicles involved are still here at the scene, and people who drive on this stretch of 280 say it's very dangerous, and this accident was not surprising.
It was horrific. It shook me to the bones.
Robert Houghton is still shaken up after witnessing this devastating.
Let's pause right there. Let's pause and reflect, if you will. This is an ambulance that is operating in the non-protected area of a vehicle crash scene. One, look what it did to the back of the front of the ambulance, how much intrusion it has pushed this truck forward. Two, what would have happened if you were loading a patient, providing patient care, or anything else near, in, or around the back of that ambulance? This would have been a multi-fatality.
Chain reaction accident on Interstate 280 right outside his West Orange apartment window. Several cars smashed, a dump truck scorched, and despite it all, everyone survived. State police say it happened around 10:20 this morning. State troopers were responding to an earlier accident in the eastbound lane of I-280 near exit 9 in West Orange. Lewis Reed saw the first accident happen.
Yeah, they were speeding. The guy that hit.
All right, that's really what I wanted you to see there as we move forward. This is why we should work in the, as we're loading, this is why we should work in the protected area. It's also why you need Norton 360 evidently.
Get the feeling you're being...
A deadly crash forced a freeway to shut down in Palo Alto. The CHP says a box truck heading south slammed into a stopped fire truck in the right lane of 101. KPIX5's Kinto reports it could have been a lot worse.
Firefighters are trained to angle their wheels whenever they're parked in a lane with oncoming traffic. That's exactly what they did early this morning, and it likely prevented further tragedy. Engine 64 was fully loaded when it was hit and weighed about 30,000 pounds. So the fact that the
Well, there's a pretty good amount of intrusion into the back of this apparatus, obviously.
truck was spun around a good distance gives you some idea of the force of the impact.
It moved the fire engine, it was almost perpendicular to the road. After it got hit, it went towards the center divider.
Investigators say the truck driver was carrying a load of baked goods at 4:30 a.m. when he plowed straight into the fire truck. Firefighters were actually there for a crash that had happened about an hour before. The front cab was crumpled so badly, officers couldn't even read the name of the company on the door of the truck. It took 30 minutes to cut him out. Paramedics took him to the hospital where he died.
It worked exactly as it was supposed to.
I think they kind of transitioned that a little better because obviously we didn't want the guy to die.
The firefighters were following proper protocol in parking the truck in a way that forms a protective roadblock. Pointing the tires away meant during a collision, the truck would get pushed away from first responders.
I don't think it's inconceivable to believe that if that engine wasn't parked the way it was, where it was, being hit by a major vehicle, the outcome could have been terrifying and tragic.
The damaged $600,000 fire engine was assigned to Station 4. To replace it, Station 4 will have to pull an older truck out of the reserve backup fleet.
All right. So there's a great example of a large vehicle hitting the back of a fire truck, and the crews working the other side of it were just fine.
DraftKings, come on in and make it rain in the land of the millionaire.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Breaking news tonight. A fire truck T-boned by a semi on 71 Highway. We have a news crew live on the scene.
The accident in the southbound lanes of 71 Highway at J Highway in Peculiar. KMBC9's Jim Flink has been on the scene and joins us live. Jim?
Laura, we've been here for the better part of an hour and a half, and southbound 71 Highway is still shut down. Let me get out of the picture as photographer.
As we look at these videos, I'm trying to drill in the point that if you're working on the safety side of a blocked fire apparatus, you are going to be in a good shape. So we have, the first video is a box truck versus an engine. This video is a semi versus an engine.
A car was involved in an accident, and firefighters arrived on the scene to fight that fire and also to assist that driver. All the firefighters were out of the truck when a semi-truck came barreling down the highway and at full speed plowed into the back of that fire truck that is on the highway there. What we understand is this: 2 people have been life flighted. One of them was originally a part of that accident. The other one is the driver of the tractor trailer. No firefighters that we know of have been injured in.
I think we can stop right there. No firefighters, no emergency responders, no ambulance personnel, no LEOs were injured in the making of this video. Literally. Because there is a massive amount of damage. I mean, I don't know that you can get any more loaded than an 80,000-pound semi rolling down the highway at speed, hitting the back of a fire engine that was properly positioned to make sure the crash scene where we're working, we're providing patient care, where we're loading the patient, we're in the back of the ambulance just treating the patient. It did not make any intrusion into that safety area. Be sure you properly position your apparatus and use those safety zones. If you don't have that safety zone set up, maybe you're responding with, who knows, agency X, Y, or Z, ask them, I need you to put your truck over here so we have a safe area to work. Be sure you protect yourselves and your companies.
Dare to forget that. Dare to have fun with it.
A terrible crash involving a Douglas County fire truck shuts down the highway for hours, and tonight authorities are still trying to figure out what caused the truck driver to slam into a fire truck while it was responding to another accident. The truck driver, 41-year-old Yvonne Martin, died at the scene. Nick Sturdivant takes a look at what happened and the efforts lawmakers are taking to keep this from happening.
Firefighters spent some of the day Sunday
Okay, so this is a semi versus a ladder truck. Obviously, the ladder is the biggest, largest, heaviest truck we own. I know ladder ones are right at 84,000 pounds, I believe. So it actually weighs a little more than a loaded semi because that's 80,000 pounds per DOT. With all that said, on the interstate, if you're on I-44, you're probably going to see ladder 5 sitting somewhere out there. These are great trucks to work behind. I've seen actually videos, I couldn't find it, of a direct side impact of a semi losing control on the water and T-boning a ladder truck that was set up to provide safety area, and everybody's fine. The trucks were actually destroyed, and it's sad that this resulted in a fatality of the driver. But if you see the trend of these 2 semis, when they hit the back of a when they hit the back of a fire apparatus, the fatality that comes out of it is not a responder or a EMS provider or a law enforcement officer. It is the person that didn't have due regard and ran into the accident. We've got to protect ourselves. We've got to protect each other. We've got to make sure our apparatus are protected and positioned properly so that we have a safe working environment. If we don't need to be there. The old days of, barely pulling over on the side of the road and working, man, that is so dangerous. People just come screaming through there. Yes, we have laws that protect us. Yes, there's the move over and slow down. And yes, there's nobody that really enforces that. I mean, it's a great project and it's helped a lot, but I know we've been out there. Those people come barreling by and they just about clip your mirrors, and the ambulance is shaking back and forth because the semi just literally went a foot by running 80 miles an hour. We've got to be careful. We have got to provide these safety layers. And I'm going to go back just to kind of drill in the point here about blocking. We have got to set this scene up at all of our accidents. We've got to work in a safe area. Just continue. Be mindful. Watch what we're doing. Protect each other. Protect ourselves. And stay safe out there. All right, we're going to take a short break as we get ready for our next presentation. And we will be right back.